So my hope with this, I didn't create anything super formal. I hope it can be more of a Q&A because I know everyone's doing it in slightly different ways. We some of you were present when Rebecca shared with us Wine Coop at Eagle Staff what they were doing there, and that was really helpful. I know for me that was before I was doing anything, so that was really helpful for me to get a sense of what one way one school is doing it. I saw Shelley Macer at Whitman was doing it in a slightly different way, and so it's good to kind of learn from everyone's different ways and then tweak it to fit what works for you. I know I had super jealousy this spring as I was watching other librarians start to do it, and I had not been given the green light, and so I was just like super envious and really actually jealous, like feeling like I'm falling behind, right? And I don't want to fall behind, and I want to get these books into my kids' hands. And so I don't know, some of you may be feeling that as well, right? Like you maybe haven't been given the green light, but I think so even if you can't start this summer, I think this is something for us to think about moving forward into the fall so that we can provide this access for students. So for me, I started first by getting a grant for my PTA to get books into the hands of kids that were furthest from educational justice. And that's kind of how I started at the end of the school year. And that's before I was able to access my collection. And so I was purchasing books, the PTA was purchasing books, and then I was delivering them to student homes and reaching out and making that contact. And I'm not going to talk a ton about that, but the reason I mention that is because what I've been doing now with the curbside pickup, I do not feel like it is necessarily reaching those kids furthest from educational justice. Like I see a lot of the kids that I see putting in requests are the kids that, I don't know, I don't see it. They're not a lot of our kids from furthest from educational justice. And so my goal moving forward is to think about, so how can I reach those kids who aren't emailing me, who aren't putting in those requests? And I was doing some of that in the spring by reaching out to them and delivering books to their homes. And so as I formulate and think about it for the fall, that's where I want to spend some of my time, reserve my home deliveries, not for the families that just are like, oh, I'm busy that day, can you drop it off? But those families that really need me to deliver it to their home. So that's something that I'm setting as a goal for myself to do more of that outreach with those families and those students. But to talk about the curbside pickup that I'm doing this summer. So I'm doing 4 days. I did 2 in June when I scheduled them around when I was doing laptop deployment with 5th graders because I was already there and doing it. So that made it great. And then I'm doing 1 day in July and 1 day in August. I am not being paid for it. And I know that can be a slippery slope to go down that road of doing extra work outside of our contract time. So I totally get it if you're like, don't want to go down that route. I decided to, because I just decided to do that. So I am doing it this summer on my own time. But it happens to line up, again, the one in July is lining up with a day when we're doing laptop or we're doing yearbook distribution. So hopefully there will be lots of kids there because of that as well. And then August, I'll just be on my own. So first steps first is when I went about this is I created a video using Screencast-O-Matic. And if you haven't used Screencast-O-Matic, it's a really easy way to create a quick video. A lot of people also use PowerPoint, like doing a voiceover in PowerPoint. I like Screencast because I don't have to like create anything extra. I can just pop around to different screens rather than having to like create a PowerPoint and then voice over it, but both would work. Mine was way too long, so I re-recorded one that's still too long, but like ideally it would be like 2 minutes. Mine ended up being 5 minutes, but I'm too wordy, as you can probably tell. And then I started to advertise. So I put it on our West Seattle blog. I sent it out via Schoology. And then the thing that I think got the most traction is I had my assistant or my administrative secretary, she sent it out via like the school email, the robo email. And I think that's actually what got the most hits because right away, actually that's not true. Right away after I put it on my Schoology page, I had some kids start to put requests in. But once I sent it out via that, I got a lot. Now what the video showed was it showed kids how to sign up for books via the catalog. I decided to use a catalog rather than a form for a few reasons. The form was, I like the idea of using like an Office 365 form, but ultimately then kids would be putting things on hold that aren't necessarily available, right? I wanted them to A, learn how to use our catalog, and B, be able to see real time what's available, right? And get in the loop, because that would be a lot more work if I had to take what they wanted in the form and then put them all on hold. Now, one quick problem I realized quickly after I'd sent out the video is that I didn't realize incoming 6th graders, I'm at Madison Middle School, incoming 6th graders, because they aren't in my system, they cannot place holds themselves. That will be the same for you if you were like at a high school. At least that's for Seattle schools. I'm not sure for Everett. We chose not to. I asked Angie DeBoo, our awesome Angie, about it, and she said they chose not to move kids up so that you could still communicate with your kids that are exiting from your school about like books that they still had checked out. So what my workaround for that is, so I must have had like 70 emails from elementary parents about it. Like, we followed your directions, we can't log on. So then I started doing like an auto reply that would explain to them my mistake. But my workaround is they have to email me what their kid wants. And I tell them to check the catalog, see if it's available, and email me. And then I try to go in as quickly as I can and put them on hold. And I always tell them, like, in the meantime, a current student may go in and put it on hold, but we'll do our best. So I'll stop there. Any questions as of now about, like, that's what you should do up front. You should create a video or use one of ours. If you don't care about having your face on it, you can, I can share mine with you. In fact, I'll put it in the chat at the end. It's long though, it's like 5 minutes. So you might not want to create your own short one. But yeah, creating a video is the first step, and then advertising it out. And if you're thinking about doing this for the fall, it would be the same thing. You just, like, you could also even create a video without any dates, so then you can just use it for whenever, right? Any questions at this point?
Can you just address the fact that you changed the times on the holds as well?
Oh, yes. So this was another thing. So you need to also go in and adjust in your policies when your holds expire, because it'll say hold will expire, like maybe you have it set to expire like 30 days or something, but once it becomes ready, in my system, the ready holds expired in 8 days. So what I found is when I went into my catalog, all these holds that I had placed that were ready for kids, like, it's now, because I had a month in between my last one and my next one's coming up July 29th, they had all expired. And so then luckily I was able to go in and see that, and I can show you in a second where you find that information. But so I had to change 2 things. I had to change how long their holds stay in place when they're pending, and how long a ready hold, how long before it expires. So those are key as well. Any other questions before I keep going? No? Okay. So then, all right. So,
Stacia, Amy has a question.
Yes.
Amy Penley.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to, something that happened to me too is that I had a limit on the number of holds that kids
Yes.
get, and I had to go through and change that after getting a bunch of emails like I could only put this many books on hold.
Yeah.
Go into policies, that's another important thing to switch.
Totally. Amy, thanks for bringing that up, because yeah, I did too. I think mine was set to be like 5, and I made ways to let kids put 10 books on hold at a time. I guess I could have done more. I did 10, and then I'm letting them check out 10 at a time. I think Rebecca's doing like 15 or 20 at a time at Eagle Staff. So I think she's doing 20. Okay, yeah. So you could totally choose for yourself what you want to do. I guess I'm like been at 3 books at a time, so I felt like 10 was a big jump, but maybe. But you know, I also feel like it's the type of thing if a family were to email me and say that's not enough, you'd be like, okay, let me give you more, you know. But just as in a general sense, I chose 10.
And Stacia, also knowing when they return them, right? If you have kids, right? The 20 means that those 20 are not accessible for the next group.
Yes. Now, return is a whole nother thing. And that's a whole nother beast. That I know Rebecca's like, she's doing it like weekly at her school this summer. So she has more opportunities to turn the books over. I'm not, I'm only doing it July 29th and then August 20th. So these ones that just got checked out in June, there's no real way for kids to return those until July 29th. My school's not open, like the office isn't open for kids to come in. And so unfortunately, they're just going to return them on that July 29th date, and then they'll have to wait until the August 20th to give those books out to other kids. But in the fall, I envision it working a lot better, because if I'm doing it, my hope is to be doing this on a weekly basis in the fall. So having one day a week that I do this curbside pickup if we're remote, and then it would be quick, right? They'd sit for 3 days and I'd be ready to check them out the next week. So I think that return process will be a lot easier. Yeah, Anne.
So there. I'm wondering if there is a way, so when you get books back in, do you just wait for 3 days before you check them back in?
I think there's a few ways you could do it. Tuesday and I were talking about this. Like, that's how I did it this spring when books were returned. I had them, they were returned on carts or in bins. I waited 3 days and then I checked them all in. What Tuesday did was she had a station set up where there was a scanner and kids would physically scan their book to check it in. And there was she had a volunteer sitting at the computer making sure it got checked in. And then they would place their book in the return bin. So they were already checked in. So that's another way, like, that you could do it. That probably takes out a little bit of work, right? Like having to check them all in. So that's a possibility also.
I also wonder if maybe given this new situation, if Follett could work on something where if it's checked in, it wouldn't necessarily be, I mean, I'm just trying to think about ready for hold kind of thing. Yeah. So
yeah, because see, I like when I check things in, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for if there's holds or not. And
right.
I put a sticker right away with the kid's name it's on hold for. So I might not actually, I don't know. I'm kind of like anal and like control freak. So I probably and check in all the books on my own so I can be checking for those things like after 3 days pass. So it's kind of, for me, like the check and check out's like a 2-day process, right? So I anticipate for this July 29th date, I'm actually going to go in 2 days early just to be safe, but you kind of can see how many holds you have. But I'm going to go in on the 27th and I'm going to start filling all the holds. I could imagine if I had books, I would also be checking them in at that time, right? Putting holds aside.
Stacia?
Yes.
This is Sarah. I'm at an elementary school, but I did interlibrary loan in Wisconsin for many years. Smaller district, but I seem to remember that once you check in a book, maybe Angie has to activate it, but I'm pretty sure that there is the option to have on shelving cart. And I would think she would be able to set that to like 3 days.
Say it one more time. To have
you check a book in, instead of it saying ready, it could say on shelving cart.
Oh.
Which then, I mean, if we could have that on there for like 3 days, I don't know. I'll take a look at the policies too, but I'm guessing Angie would have to do that. I think that's
yeah.
I'm wondering though, like, maybe I'm just missing something of, if we as the librarians are the only ones who are going to be physically in the library pulling books, like, finger crossed that we get to do that. But like, do we need to make a distinction? Because
I don't know if you would,
so it doesn't really matter if.
Yeah. I think you would just, for me, I'm imagining I will just check them in, and if there's a hold on them, then I'll set them aside. If there's not, I'll shelve them.
Right.
But I don't know.
I'm not sure. I guess I'm not seeing why we would need to have the catalog say something different, as long as it's available in the catalog so that students know they can place a hold on it. Like that seems.
I think it would tell the kid who's trying to check a book out that they would see, instead of it saying available, it would say on the cart, so that they'd know they wouldn't get it for 3 days.
But they wouldn't be getting it until the fall.
Hold, but they would know. That's the only thing I could think.
But since I'm just thinking, if the policy is that checkout's only going to happen once every week, students aren't going to be looking for it. So I'm just throwing that out there. Like, I'm less concerned about finding a way to make that distinction in the catalog if we're the only ones that are going to be pulling holds.
And to be said, there is no policy. Right? We are building the plane and flying the plane. So Stacia, I'm going to push you along though, because you're at 3:40.
Okay, we gotta move. Okay. The other thing you have to think about is if you're going to do checkouts on the spot or not, requests. And I decided not to, because I wanted to be very wary of not having kids waiting in line. And so I chose not to have kids say, to just come and make requests then, because I wanted to be quick about it. So let me show you the catalog, what it looks like, and how I did it in the catalog. So I'll share my screen. So I just would come in here and I would come into my holds and I would come and so I'd see, okay, so these ones are the ones that were ready to be held or ready to be pulled. And then these are all my ones that were ready. And then these are like pending holds, right? And then at the bottom are my ones, my interlibrary loans. So from all my incoming sixth graders, those are the ones that I had to place myself. And there's this great option at the bottom. You can print a list and you can choose which ones you want to have show up. Now, the first time I did this, it was super time consuming because when I printed this list, and maybe this is something we can talk to Angie about, but I could not figure out how to print the list and have it be by student. Instead, it was by like in call number order. So I had to look through for each kid to find which books they wanted, which was really time consuming. So what I ended up doing is I just would look here and I'd pull Caitlin and I'd come on over to Caitlin and I would come over here and say print receipt. And then it would show me her current checkouts, but then it would tell me her holds and reserves, and I'd pull the ones that said ready. So I would just have this sheet for her, and this is where I got helpers. So I had helpers for the day before and the day of. So the helpers the day before were probably the most helpful. So I would say it's good to have like at least 2 helpers, if not 3. And what I was doing is I was pulling all the books because it was way easier for me to find them quickly on the shelves. But you have to do a little pre-work. So the pre-work is I printed each of these sheets up for every student had put a book on hold, which I just found from that list I showed you before that had the whole list of books ready to be pulled and that were ready. And then, but you'll notice, like, if you're really familiar with your library, you might know where to find these on the shelf, but it doesn't tell you, like, the author or anything. So, and my library is by genre. So I went through, and if there were books, I looked through every list I printed. And if there were books that I didn't off the top of my head know where they were at in my library, I quickly looked them up in the catalog. And so before I even went in that day before school, I had all these sheets of paper for every kid stapled, ready to go with on it, like the call number and the genre location of my library. So I did that work like while I was watching some stupid TV at home. So that was ready. And then on the day of, when I was in my library, or the day before, then I have a stack of sheets of papers. I'm taking the first sheet and grabbing all their books and putting the sheet in the top book, giving it to my volunteer, and I'm telling them to check out the book to the student. So all the books are already checked out. I didn't leave them on hold. I checked them out to the student. Once they'd done that and all their stuff, then they'd pass it to the person who was, they would put a Post-it on it with the name of the student and put the sheet inside it, the top book, pass it on to the other helper who would then put it into a bag and I had printed up a little Canva poster about like my next checkout days. They would write the student's name on it, staple it to the paper bag, and then they went and put it in alphabetical by the student's name. I had like in the library, a big long line of bags. And then we just kept that process going. It was really fast. And then since I was doing laptop, or because we had so many books the first time, we had probably 100 or so kids, we did not want to bring all those books outside for the curbside pickup. So the day of, I had 2-3 runners, and they were just all day running in. I was doing laptop deployment in the library, so I couldn't be outside. I will be in July. I'll be outside, but they were just running in and grabbing books. So they were getting their steps in, and they were coming in, grabbing books and passing them out to kids. And we just had kids distance 6. We had little markers on the ground, 6 feet apart, and they'd come up, say their name, they'd go in and get the books, pass them off, and they'd, send them with a little sheet saying, they had their sheet on the bag saying, here's the next day, and hope to see you again. So I didn't do much I know Tuesday did a lot of book chatting at her pickup. We didn't do that. I wasn't outside with the kids. It was just volunteers, and I wanted to keep the line moving. But yeah, I think in the fall, though, I anticipate if it was smaller, I could have all the books outside. If it was maybe 10, 15 kids that were coming, that'd be easy. But yeah, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. What questions do you guys have? Oh, and I also put this sheet here that I wrote down. I put it inside the bag as well so that kids could see what books they were taking, what books they would see the pending, that those aren't ready yet. And then some of the books like that say ready, I couldn't find. So I would, I could write that on there, say sorry, or right now I have 50 laptop carts blocking a bunch of shelves in my library. So I said, sorry, I couldn't get to this book. Hopefully it'll be ready the next time. So.
Stacia, Can you show your poster?
Yes, I pull that up.
Advertising?
Yeah, so this was my little poster I created in Canva. Thanks to, I think that, who initially,
maybe Claire?
Claire initially created this one for Lincoln Library, and I just adapted it. So if anyone wants a copy of it, you can adapt it as well. And so I just put my basic information on here. I put like the summer dates. I put how to find the video to place a hold. And then I put the most important part was for those incoming 6th graders. I put that, I think, letting them know that they can't do it on their own. They have to email me with their picks. And then my one shift for the fall will be really reaching out to those kids that are having trouble accessing books or don't have the ability to access books, trying to make home deliveries for them and like really reaching out, asking them, trying to encourage them to get books. So yeah, sorry, that was a lot. I'm trying to choose, I can't find the thing right now to stop sharing. Do you want to stop my sharing so that we can, are you able to stop that?
I have a question.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. So my question is, did you have any people just drop by to pick up books? And if so, obviously you had safety guidelines, but did you have some books just ready, like mystery bags or anything like that?
You know, I did not. You mean for people who didn't put holds in?
Yes, I'm really worried that I'm going to have all my book club kids just show up and think it's a party. And
you know, I was really clear in my, I chose not to. I went back and forth because I was like, oh, I want to. There's going to be appointment. I want to have, you know, have more come over and be like, oh, I didn't know this is going on. But I just was worried that it would be too much backlog and for distancing. So I made it clear in my communications, like that they had to put in a request at least a day in advance. So
thank you.
I just chose to draw that line.
I didn't. I let it ride, but
you let it ride.
But again, if I had Stacia's population, I don't know if I would have done that because she had 5,000 million holds. And if I was an elementary librarian who had 5,000 million holds, I probably wouldn't have either. I only had 38 families. So because I only had 38 families and I had 3 helpers outside, right?
Now, I might do it differently. I could see one cool thing that Tuesday did that I like the idea of, and if since I'll be out here for these future ones, not inside doing the deployment, I could see like she highlighted a bunch of like racial justice books, which I think would be really cool. And I could see like me sitting at that table and like, hey, if there's anything additional you want, you can't touch, but like if you want to grab, you can't browse, right? But if you see what you want, like having a separate table for checking out of those ones that you're featuring, right? Or let's say you had like a featured list of books and happen to have some of them available. You could have those out. So I would maybe have one table for kids who put in their pre-requests and another table for, hey, these are what else I've got available if you want to hear if you want to check it out right now. That seems doable. Have a laptop out there with you.
I will say,
yeah, and I have some arts I can put out there too.
It helped when I had teachers assist me. So I was not seated next to the books, book talking them. There was a ton of reader advisory that was being done in terms of like anti-racist family book clubs. And then when I was running in and out because I was like, oh, you want a dystopic? Hang on. And then I would run in and get it. And so but I again did not have the numbers that Stacia had. And so I followed what Seattle School District is using for Seattle super readers. So the minute people came up, I squirted their hands, even though I didn't allow them to touch anything. I still squirted their hands. They still had to wear masks, right? And it made everybody feel better. And then I said, here are the puzzles. And I said, would you like one? And then I gave them a puzzle because I'm tired of having all these puzzles in my library, not doing anything. And then they had this moment of like, oh, I can take a puzzle. And I'm like, yes. And then I gave them the bag. And then I said, oh, come over here. And then I had my teachers book talk them. And then they book talked them, and people left with bags and bags of books they wouldn't have otherwise. Again, though, to Stacia's point, these are not parents and families furthest from educational justice at all. But they are families that when I said, can you do a short video as a testimonial to the power of libraries and possibly write an email to my superintendent? They were like, absolutely. So
I think that's where, like, I think that outreach is going to be really important in the fall, though. Like, I keep coming back to it, but that's like my next step. not, I mean, all kids need books, right? I want to get books into all the hands of my readers, but I really want to try to target those kids that are not able to access books as easily.
Stacia, can you talk about who didn't show up to get the books, what you're going to do?
Oh yeah, and I think Amy had a question too. Amy, do you want to go first and then I'll answer that next?
Yeah, I mean, it's a detail thing, but I'm wondering if you know how to make the setting so that the kids can unhold a book. So,
well, this is a good question, Amy. And
it's a fantastic question because my kids were like, ah.
See, I think that I always thought kids could, because when I'm logged in, not as my lib_circulation, but as myself, I can unhold a book. But then I had a student email me who said that he could not unhold his book. So is that what everyone else is finding too, that they can't? So maybe that's a question for Angie, if she can change that setting or something, because I don't know how to do that.
I want to say, Stacia, that in Wisconsin, we had to always delete for the kids. They had to come up to the front and say, can you please delete my hold? Because we would give them, like, at that time, I remember we had, like, at elementary level, they could place 3 holds. And so those 3 were sacred. And so they'd be really bummed if there was something that came in new and they're like, I want to change it. I want to take this one off and put this one on. So we always did it for them.
Yeah, and I haven't found it to be too overwhelming. Like, I get like a few emails every now and from like elementary. I thought at first I was like, oh my gosh, this elementary thing, this is going to be a nightmare with all these incoming 6th graders. But I haven't found it to be bad. Like, they just send me, these are the ones I want. And most of them have been great about checking the catalog. They already know. And then I just respond back and say, oh yeah, they're all ready. They'll be ready on the 29th. Or I'll say, it looks like one wasn't. They're all ready except for this one. And they're like, okay. So, and I've had a few kids email me and say, can you delete these holds? And I'm like, okay. So it hasn't been too bad. I did have what Tusi was referencing, that I did have like a out in June. I had probably like 6 kids or 10 kids that did not come and get theirs. And then I went out of town. So they're still sitting in the library. I haven't delivered them. I should have maybe, but I didn't. So what I should do and what I will do is probably contact those families when I go in on the 27th, because I don't know who those kids are right now. I have to look and email them and say, hey, did you still want your holds? If so, please email me back, or else I'm going to make them available for the next kid on hold for the 29th.
And Stacia, I just think we need to be really cautious of how we set up deliveries. One, we are not insured, right? In Seattle Public Schools, I know like Deb Payne and Everett is, and they've got like a van they use and the whole kit and caboodle. We are not.
Yeah.
I know that Rebecca has so many deliveries at Eagle staff that she has now I think she has like 12 or 15 volunteers driving around her deliveries.
It's funny.
Not realistic for me.
My first video, I kind of advertised that my really long 7-minute one, I advertised that I would, if you can't pick it up, let me know, I'll make a home delivery. And then I kind of backtracked a little bit. My second video, I didn't say that. I said, contact me if you're not able to come and get them, because I really kind of want to reserve that for those kids that really need it. Because you're right. Like we can't just, I have like 1,100 kids. You have like 2,000, right? I'm not going to be driving.
And I think we have to think about our sites. Like, I'm a meal site. So like my parents asked how they would return their books. And I said, well, there's a bin outside the main office every Friday. So it would help families and students if every time you finish a book, just drop it in the bin. And then when I come in, I'll check them in. But that I can do that because I'm a meal site and my secretary comes every Friday. You have to think about like, what is your site's policies or procedures? Rebecca goes, Eagle staff's open every day because of a meal site, and she goes once a week to water the plants. So if you have, you know what I mean? So you have to think about like, what are the possibilities?
Even for, because the custodial staff is a big thing, right? Even for like coming in the summertime. That's not a possibility for every school for you to even be able to do it, right? I almost wasn't able to do, I had to really push for my 2 days because, and then it was like, well, you need to have your own people, your own volunteers. I'm like, yeah, I can get all that. But so I really, I mean, I'd say think about the fall, if, like think to the fall about how this might work for you.
But Stacia, I would recommend also start practicing with your families, because I think what you've started right now and what other people have done is if people now know how to use the holds. Like they know how to look at the website. They know their expectations. They know and if we keep just explaining, do you go to restaurants? Do you get pickup at restaurants? What is the policy restaurants? Do you mask up? Are they safe? Like, how do you maintain safe distance? Like, all those things they're already doing for the most part. I think we can start practicing and training our kids and our families.
Yeah, I'm putting in the chat right now, and I don't know if you'll be able to, sometimes, and I find, it looks like it's linkable there. Yeah, I put my video. Again, it's too long. I'd create your own, and it has like the dates that are specific to Madison. But if you don't care and you don't want to recreate something, then feel free to use it. It's really long and too wordy.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, you guys. And this is partially what Stacia was saying, but also for Everett librarians. We were told and sent an email that our buildings are closed. So I'm just wondering, Deb, how you might be getting around that, and I know you've talked with your principal already, but maybe Stacy, have you broached this subject yet? And what's your feeling?
I haven't brought it up at my site. I also, just my current situation, I live pretty far from where I work. So for me, going in July just wasn't really something I was willing to do. So I'm willing to like maybe bring it up in August, and definitely for September for sure. I think this is going to be amazing, but I don't have an intention to do this before mid-August. We're going to be doing, laptop deployment. So I feel like the first chance that we get at this, we'll be willing to do the laptop deployment in August. So.
And for me, mine was accidental, Amalia. We met with my new principal, and my library secretary said, "Oh, do we get to do library days in the summer? Because we would love to pass out books." And I was totally expecting my boss to say no. And she asked somebody on high, and they told her, yes, go for it. So we're just pulling this together the last few days, and Tuesday has been wonderful and given me some advice, and we're trying to make it happen fast. So next week's our first day.
It's awesome. Good luck.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Stacia and Tuesday, can I ask, did either of you send out a reminder email to people beforehand?
Yeah.
Did you use?
I had my secretary send out an email.
You mean thousands of reminders? Yeah.
No, I mean like specifically, not a reminder for everyone to. I mean,
I sent
reminders only to the people who already placed holds.
No.
Oh,
I didn't do that.
But I did send out like if kids had overdue books, I sent that out. So the day I pulled all the books, I said, if you have overdue books and you still haven't returned them, you can still do this. You can still return your books, and you can check out a book on hold. So I got some of them from those kids, and some randomly hit them.
I didn't do that, and I'm hesitant to do that only because I know when I did send out my one email about overdue books, with the caveat, I get it, you haven't been able to return them. I understand, I'm just sending this to let you know. I still have parents that didn't read that and were like, what? How was I supposed to? So I was like, I don't want to. So I was hesitant to send out any of those overdue this summer, but probably in the fall I will. Anne.
So to get back to the fall, I really want to wrap my head around what this might look like going forward, because I do have some plans in place, at least in my mind, and I think we all should have this in our minds about what this might look like. And I'm thinking that for those of us, whether we are full-time or half, librarians might be in a position to be in their buildings doing something like this. So I'd like to get my head around how we can serve our schools on a basis with this kind of model. So if anybody wants to maybe troubleshoot that beyond this phone call, possibly not this afternoon, but I would be into figuring that out, troubleshooting and coming up with, because I can't be doing this. I have at my library, we have almost 600 students at Bryant. And if I put this kind of announcement out, I'm thinking we would at least get a couple of hundred families that would take up on it. And I can't do that in one day. It would have to be
Like, how would I spread them out over the week? And so I'd have to think about that.
I wonder though, Anne, if you were doing it every week, like let's say you were offering it every Thursday, right? Like I'm imagining I have about 1,100, and that's I think that's a really good point you bring up. I offered this, and elementary is probably different than middle school. You probably have even more in elementary, but I probably had like 100 kids for my 2 days that I did in June. But I wonder if I'm doing it every week, if it became a regular thing. I don't think I'd get 100 kids every week. I don't know, maybe I would.
And could you have alphabets? Like week 1 and week 3 is A through L. Week 2 and week 4 is M through Z. And you just keep, and that is for the whole year. This is your week. I don't know. Yeah. But I think Anna's going to be overrun. I mean, I think most elementaries will be overrun. I mean, just having Seattle Super Readers, parents wanted a stack of books.
Well, and they go through their books so much quicker, right? I mean, that's the huge difference.
That's what they told me. They said that will last 4 minutes. Now what?
I think the key is going to be how many holds. And that's like where I am really struggling right now, because you want the kids to have books. But I talked to my principal yesterday, and I got 2 little guys, and I know I sent this to Tuesday, but my principal was actually really good about saying, I picture you teaching remotely, doing your library lessons from home. And I said to her, but I want to get books in kids' hands. And she said, absolutely. And they're not using the library. But I said, would it be a possibility to even go in the evenings to fill all the holds? And she said, oh, and then you could even go around to the classrooms, leave the books there for the kids that had them on hold, because nobody would be there. You wouldn't have to worry about the contact. Something I'm still kind of playing around with, but with 2 little guys that I might keep home myself, I think this might be an answer to my solution. But either way, knowing, like we were just talking about too, and I know Kelsey, when you brought up that idea of, do we need it's on the shelving cart? I don't think at my elementary school, they were allowing any adults in the building. So if we are doing all the shelving, I would like that on the shelf, because I'm thinking, where is this book that
so you can find it?
And I'm still in quarantine. It's only on day 2 of quarantine. Like, I'm just trying to physically picture, how many book carts do I need? I almost need 3 book carts for each day of the quarantine. And then, filling the holds too. I've kind of questioned delivery as well. Like, for those kids that need it, I had the same thing, Stacia, where I went around to like 15 kiddos and gave them some books, like in June or something. And I thought maybe I just deliver those directly to those kiddos if their parents are willing. And then the rest of them, hopefully I can just take them to the classrooms if they're there. Now, if we're all remote, then we'd have to look at like an outdoor time period. But the evening, quite honestly, for our families is probably going to be best too. Not that that's going to work for everybody, but if our principals are somewhat flexible, I don't know.
Yeah, I've been doing my curbside 3 to 5 only because that's when they were doing the laptop deployment at my school. So I just did that time frame, but that would be a good thing to get some family voice on that, right? Like some surveying of like when are times for families, when's the best time for families?
I do think it would be good for families, but I will say as librarians, if we are 0.5, for us, is that best for us too? So I think everybody will have their own,
hey, Stacia,
story.
For how many weeks did I not have any holds? How many weeks did I?
Yeah, you were sad there for a while.
Stacia, how much was I laying on the couch crying?
Yeah, you were. I've never seen you so dejected.
Well, so Deb Payne just asked me to remind me of this, y'all, of this, because literally I did this Dollar's Best Takeout, and I did Instagram, and I did Twitter. I mean, I was like dancing. I mean, Lindy knows. I was doing all the things, and I was like, come on, guys. 4 kids, folks. I about lost my mittens. So I laid on the couch. It was right when we found out we were going to be K-3 teachers, and I sobbed my wee little eyes out. I was so sad. And then Stacia's like, do you need me to call you? I'm like, no, right? Because she had like 100 holds, and I was so mad, right? And I was so upset. And I'm not trying to compare myself to Stacia or middle school, but it was so hard, right? And you know what?
But then they came through and you ended up having like 38, right?
And I talked to Claire Scott, who's an amazing librarian. She only had 13. Like, there's no guarantees, right?
Yeah.
So, and if I can just say, as someone who worked in a K-12 school, elementary school, by far, you're going to have the most holds. And especially that first week, because they're all going to be super curious about it. So, so what Tuesday suggested, maybe you spread it out by, if your name starts A through H, you can place a hold this week and you can place a hold next week or something. I don't know, but Ann, you're right. You will be inundated. That first week, elementary school is going to be all over that. The other thing I wanted to point out, well, the other thing I wanted to point out was when I was actually checking out the holds that we pulled, the way we did it at Ballard, we ended up not necessarily pulling them in the order they were placed. So kids got books that maybe someone else was ahead of them in the hold list, but you know, we just couldn't go back and fix that. We just like, you get the book, you get the book, you don't, you know.
But Lindy, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't come across that problem because I was only pulling ones where it said ready. So like if you pulled the kid's name and it said pending, I wasn't pulling those books for them. Just so the system should guarantee that you're only.
Well, that's and the thing, we had teachers. I had a teacher pulling the books, so it's entirely possible that he didn't know to look for that.
Yeah,
so I was doing other parts of the process. Tuesday was doing other parts of the process, and then teachers were pulling books.
And Stacia,
you know what I found too? What
the same. You print the receipt. I printed in where their names are and put hold. And so under holds, it doesn't say pending. You printed the receipt. I didn't. I did a slightly different thing. So that's what she's referring to.
Yeah. And I'll say the other thing that sometimes happens that confused me at first is, so I would pull a copy of Mockingjay for Bobby. But I have 4 copies of Mockingjay. Well, I was not going to take the time to look up and see, because when it makes hold ready, it picks a specific copy for Bobby. But I didn't care. So sometimes I would pick one, whatever, for Bobby, and it would say, oh, this other one, you know how it says, this other one can be returned to the shelf, right? Or it would say, this copy of Mockingjay is on hold for Susie. And I'm like, well, that's okay. I know there's enough copies for Susie too, so Susie will just get a different copy of it. So first I was like trying to check that and make sure I had the right one. I was like, that takes too much time. So
one thing I'm going to add about that is it doesn't delete the hold. So if Bobby had copy A and you check out copy B, if Bobby had copy A on hold and you check out copy B to Bobby, the hold stays on Bobby's account.
Yeah, I didn't find that, Kelsey.
I did all mine, and then I went back and I was like, oh my gosh, why does Bobby still have a hold? I thought I pulled all the books. And I'm like, oh, I already checked a copy of this book out to that person. So I just deleted the hold that was still there.
Kelsey, do you think you placed that hold?
You've just checked out a different copy of the same title.
I'm curious if Destiny would have came up with a message, Kelsey, if you were the one to check it out. It might say, this copy is on hold, but it might have a different barcode. I know there's some funky messages.
Yeah, it says that. It just lets me check out the copy I want to check out, but it doesn't remove.
Doesn't delete it.
Yeah, I didn't find that, Kelsey. Mine were removed. So I wonder. I don't know.
There's a lot of little messy things within Destiny from my experience. Like we'll find it. But the one thing that I was just trying to test, I know I have a couple of kiddos. I've made up students so that I can do my videos to show them. I've done a couple. And I shared with Colette this week for like even the ebooks, because the kids need to, if they want to check those out, they have to log in. So the holds are right there too. So I did turn off all my holds. But my question right now is, because we can see all schools in the district, are our kids able to place a hold on all of our books? Because are you sure? Because I went in as me and I was able to hold it was a choice on a book that I found at the high school.
Well, I think no, because my 5th graders that are now at other schools could not place holds on my Madison books. Even though they're coming to my school, they couldn't place, that's why they had to email me their holds.
Okay, let's hope that.
Place it for them, but they couldn't place it themselves.
Hey, Stacia, Stacy came up with a good point. Stacy, we recently at Ballard had just done inventory. So that's how we were pretty confident in the books. But if you had asked me prior to doing that in this fall, like my inventory hadn't been done in like 6 years.
Yeah.
Right. So easily someone could ask for a book and I've been like, I don't know.
Totally. And I came across that like 3 or 4 books. I was like, I just had to write. And that's why I put that receipt in their bag. I would write, sorry, I couldn't find this book on the shelves. And then that tells me I can mark it as lost, or whatever I want to do for my inventory.
Stacia, how long did it take you to pull books? Because I think that is key.
It took me, when the first day I did it the wrong way. I did it the way by just printing out that list of holds that were not alphabetized by the student's name. And that took me a long time. And I was on my own. I was probably there for 4 hours. And then the second day we were there for like 4 or 5 hours with like 3 other people helping me. And we were still there for 4 or 5 hours. But so I guess I spent eight hours, but that was a lot of holds I was doing. And then the checkout we did over 2 days. We passed out about like 100 holds or so or 100 different kids, which probably each had like 5 or 10 holds. We just did 2 hours each day is all. And that felt really well spaced out. So it was just a 2-hour chunk of time each day. And that felt like plenty of, it was kind of busy, but not too crazy. And
because I will say, because I hadn't done it before. And so my kids were starving, right? And so I had a couple kids place 10 and another kid place 15. 15 was my max. It took me a good 10 to 12 minutes to get that ready. So between getting the bag, finding the books, I knew where most of the books were, but some I didn't. I had to look them up, make sure they were the right book, put them in the bag, put the receipt in, take this, staple it, all of it. That's a lot of time.
Yeah,
so
that helped to have that pre-work done. Like if you can ahead of time print receipts for each kid and look through and make, a lot of them you'll know, but look up the ones ahead of time that you don't know. That will save time because then you're just coming in and you're right away. And you got to have people helping you. I mean, it's the day I did it, it's way too much time. You weren't doing that the whole time on your own though, right?
Oh no, because after that happened, I was like, hell no.
Yeah.
Like I can't do this. Thanks, Lindy.
Yeah, Lindy, you're the best. we all want a Lindy. Yeah, and I think that's a great idea that you had though, to like get a group of folks together, maybe like a couple from every grade level or something, just to look at like moving forward, what are going to be the challenges at every grade level and like the systems we can put in place, just so that it doesn't feel like, 'cause I don't know, like I think it feels like a little yucky if it's like one school's doing it and I don't get to do it, or like let's like share the wealth and the knowledge and like come up with a system so we can all kind of, it can be equitable and we can all be
right.
Similar.
I also think that I'm just getting the sense that if we come up with the system that we're willing to work within and present it, that it's going to fly, because I just don't think our district has any idea what to do. I don't know if you guys are getting that impression, but I do not think that they have any idea. But we also need to check with our principals, because there are considerations within each building that we have to be aware of. And, you know, some custodians are friendlier than others with this kind of thing. So we'll just have to run it by principals. But I think I like the idea. This is great. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
And I did by no means created this. I took the experiences of lots of other librarians that had already tried it out. So,
Stacia, would you be interested? One of the questions was, did you ever put a book-alike in a bag? If you couldn't.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I did. And I would make notes on the little receipt that I'd throw in. I'd either throw in a book alike, or oftentimes like they request like book 1 and 2 in the series. And I'd be like, oh, well, I'm clearly going to throw in book 3 because you're going to need that. But I usually would like make a little note just to let them know. And I really wasn't too big of a stickler around, you know, if it was like their book 11 or 12, whatever, you know.
I will say
that's a great idea.
It's a great idea. I will say, if you have an opportunity and you do not think you're going to be bombarded, having tables outside where you could book talk and do some reading advisory for families, next freaking level. And so I'm looking at Lindy's face. She's like, hell yeah. Because the anti-racist family book clubs, the summer Beaver reader list, and it wasn't just all me, right? So it gave, and then staff were so excited to see kids and talked. I mean, they were like, oh my God, that was amazing, right? And they left with way more books than they would have. So if you think that is a possibility, and if you think it will fly in your district, having a table out front with books that they do not touch, right, that you then can book talk, or someone can book talk, made all the difference for our site.
That's cool. I like that idea. I'm going to try something like that, I think, in July.
It totally made it a party. You know, I mean, and there were so few people that it wasn't an unsafe party. But, you know, I mean, it really did add to the flavor.
Yeah.
We even had, ours was before all this was going to be summer reading, no problema. we always take the Eagle Staff theme. So we had an inflatable llama. Kids were taking selfies with the inflatable llama. Like, I mean, they're desperate. Okay. So I want to see
joy,
right? If you theme it up, it does actually help. So.
Cool. Well, feel free to, if you have any other questions, feel free to email me, or if you come up with cooler stuff, things, ideas, email me those too. I want to know your cool ideas.
Hey, Stacia, in the chat, which Craig Seashoals came up with as well, in the future, what I'm going to do with all my books is have a bookmark that says, which Craig has, is like, if you need anything, here's my email, and here's my this, and here's my that. What other things would you suggest either putting in the books besides the receipt? I mean.
Well, I think that, like, actually one thing I wish I'd put on my Canva poster, because I put in that little Canva poster which said the rest, like the days for checkout in my email. I wish I'd put my web address for my need a book recommendation, my form for kids who don't know what to read and they want a book recommendation. I wish I'd put that on there. So that's something you could include, like whether it's on a Canva poster or a bookmark or something like that, because that's been a cool way. Although, yeah, that would, because, and a lot of kids who have been sending me requests for that this summer, who've been like, I don't know what to read next, like digitally, I'll say, hey, like Stacia, I think you were the one who taught me this. Maybe, I think you weren't you the one who taught me how to create the lists in SPL's library or the Biblio Commons? Anyways, I've been
Sorry, yeah.
Did you teach me that?
You can make lists and we talked about it.
Yeah. So I've been sending him that, but then also saying, or get it digitally, or put it on hold, or we're pick it up from us now that that's available. So you can kind of open up those avenues by sending him those lists as well.
Stacia, and it's clear, I just want to be, like, I had people from elementary and middle school come and check out books from my school because their brothers and sisters went to my school. Did you find that at your school?
No, I didn't. I would love that idea though. I had like, once a bulldog, always a bulldog. So I had like high school kids that were, kids that were going on to high school, and I even had like some juniors that were still in contact with that were asking me. But I love the idea of like them putting on holds like picture books and stuff for their younger guys. Probably I could advertise that better, and they probably would. It's a great idea.
I had another thought just sitting here. I don't mean to monopolize, but one thing you could do to reach a wider audience with this methodology is to create collections within Destiny. So if you know that right now there are certain kinds of books that are really popular, just create a Destiny collection. You wouldn't be able to annotate it for the families. You could at least have the collections at the ready, and that would be, you could also do, what's the other one in Destiny that I don't use as much as?
Resource list?
Yeah, not the resource list, but yeah, that would be that's what I'm thinking of. But then there's the other, what's the other one where you can do the more annotated version? You have to click on is it Destiny Collection?
Destiny Collections, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'd wanted, to keep up with this. I don't know if I would have time to necessarily do Destiny Collection, but I think a resource list could be of benefit,
Yeah, I've been thinking about that in terms of, I've created so many lists now within Biblio Commons for like, if you like this, read this. And I was thinking about how I don't have a lot of experience with Destiny collections, but like if that could transfer, if I could somehow import those lists I created in the Biblio Commons into my, I don't know if I could, but.
Stacia, how long do you think it's going to take to shelve all these books?
That get returned?
Yeah, let's leave the devil in the room, okay? So we're all like, books in kids' hands, right? Me too. But like, yeah. I'm a little concerned about what it's going to look like when they come back and how to keep that momentum, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not 0.5, so I'm also thinking about my brethren.
It's happening, and I don't know about you all, but I rely, in middle school at least, we rely on the labor of our amazing TAs a ton. So to do like our shelving and all that, and we won't have that this next year. I mean, I doubt we'll have that at all this next year. it'll take a while, but maybe not if it's every week, if you keep up with it. Like, I know it took me a while just at the end of the school year, right? Because we had like months worth of books coming back. And I got some teachers and parents to help me, but yeah, I don't know. Probably.
Stacia, one of the things that Deb Payne is considering is she's talking about putting friendship bracelet kits in her school.
I love that idea, Deb.
And I know you have a big makerspace movement at your school, Stacia. Is there something?
Deb, are you making them? Or are you putting the kit for them to make them? Are you going to make them a little friendship bracelet in your colors and throw it in?
I am putting the kit. I'm making the kits that they have to make.
So, like, what does a kit what does a kit include?
Second, I am so struggling. Hold on.
You're muted, Deb.
I imagine a kit could include, like, maybe just putting the colors, like the colors together.
Yes, I'm so sorry. So this weekend, I'm actually going to my cabin tomorrow, and I'm bringing my what do you call that thread that they use for it?
Embroidery?
Yes, I have blue and gold floss, and I have a specific pattern that I'm just going to write or put a label link on. Go to this link to make a seagull spirit bracelet.
Oh, cool.
Love that.
And Deb, you made yours flyby, right? Because you're the seagull.
Yes. That was my vice principal. He didn't want to copy Ballard High School, so we're doing a seagull flyby.
I love it. That's so cute.
Awesome. It's adorable.
I was not cute with mine. I just called mine Curbside Book Pickup.
Well, and I want to say there's something beautiful in that, Stacia, because every time I say Ballard Best Takeout, people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're going to Curbside Pickup. And they're like, oh, okay. So there's something about simplicity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, Stacia, you're at 4:30.
Unless anyone has any other questions, I think we could say goodbye for the day. Go enjoy the sun.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, good to see you all and fun to meet some new faces.
Yes,
we should do this again.
I was gonna say we should keep this let's share ideas amongst districts, because I gotta say, Everett, you are red hot right now with the stuff you're doing in summer. I was really jealous when Stacy was telling me you were all getting together to create summer curriculum. I was super, super jealous and thinking that was amazing. So awesome. Good on you guys. Keep it up.
Thanks, Stacia.
Bye, all.
Bye, everybody.
Everybody.
Appreciate it.
Stop the recording.